Did the New York Times endorse Tulsi Gabbard for president? Hey, thanks for watching. I am so glad that you're joining me today. I've got some really exciting news. And that's because on Friday, I made a prediction that the New York Times would put out something totally biased. And, I called my shot. I said this Sunday they're going to put out some nonsense. And I went down and bought the paper. I dropped $6 on this. And believe me, there's a lot in here that I'm going to get to all week. But today, I want to focus specifically on this insert called The Choice. It was in the Sunday edition of the New York Times. Now, right off the bat, I want to say that this video is not for my regular subscribers. Now, I'm glad that you're watching this video. I appreciate that. And chances are most people that watch this video are subscribers to my channel. But I made this video especially for all of the smart, liberal, wonderful people who subscribe to the New York Times. You see, that is most people in my personal life. In fact, the New York Times is part of their identity. They get the New York Times every Sunday for years, for as long as they can remember. That's what they do, because that's what a good, smart, liberal person does. They get the New York Times because, as they say, it's all the news that's fit to print. Well, today I'm going to go over this insert that they did called The Choice, and it has to do with the New York Times endorsing and going over who the candidates are for president. So just from the cover, it says The Choice. As part of the most transparent political endorsement process in the Times history, the editorial board is publishing transcripts from on-the-record interviews with 9 candidates, online in full and excerpt in print. So this is the most transparent political endorsement that they've ever done. Most transparent, right there on the cover. And that's interesting because why would they choose to exclude a candidate running for president? Tulsi Gabbard is a current Democratic congresswoman. She's a veteran. She's a former vice chair of the DNC, so you can't say that she's somehow not a Democrat, right? She's totally a Democrat. But she's not in this at all. That's kind of weird. Well, let's see. Maybe they explain why they chose the candidates that they did in this most transparent thing they've ever done. Okay, the New York Times editorial board has endorsed presidential candidates for more than a century. Yada, yada, yada. Many candidates are vying for the Democratic Party's nomination. Each offers a particular vision of the country's future and a different set of strengths and solutions to realize that vision. The board's endorsement process is an opportunity to ask hard questions and engage candidates in the kind of prolonged back and forth that reveals insights that don't often emerge in debates or in campaign appearances. These illuminating interviews have historically happened behind closed doors. This year, the Times board experimented with a new level of openness. All interviews were conducted on the record. We hope this endorsement process will give readers and voters a new understanding of the key issues facing the nation and shaping the 2020 presidential race. Okay, so nothing in the introduction explains the candidates that they chose, why they chose these candidates. Goes on with the editorial board where they just mention that these are all great, smart people. Okay. And we go right into the candidates. So we've got Bernie, Interesting. Tom Steyer, billionaire who's bought his way in. Andrew Yang, businessman with a... I'll just leave it at that. Elizabeth Warren. Amy Klobuchar. Pete Buttigieg. Deval Patrick. Deval Patrick? Wow. We'll get to that in a second. Joe Biden and Cory Booker. That's it. Now, this is interesting. Cory Booker dropped out a week ago. I thought one of the things with newspapers is they print them, the day before, the night before. I'm not sure why they kept Cory Booker in this, as he's been out of the race for a week. And Deval Patrick is polling at 0.3% nationally. Yeah. I have no idea why he was included, but it's odd that they did include Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, she has been running. She's been in debates. She's reached the threshold with contributions to her campaign. In fact, if you look at grassroots support, she has the second most number of subscribers to her YouTube channel after Bernie Sanders. She's got 150,000, something like that. Elizabeth Warren has 12,000, but whatever. But she does have a lot of support. She's had a lot of people donate to her. But the most transparent New York Times didn't find room for her in this. I mean, they found room for someone that already dropped out. They found room for someone who's polling at 0.3%. But let's just see. Maybe they think, I don't know, I can't read minds, but maybe they're thinking, oh, she's not a competitive candidate. So let's take a look at what's going on in New Hampshire. That would be the very first primary of the season. So here I am at Real Clear Politics. They tabulate all the polls that are going around. This is the New Hampshire Democratic presidential primary, and here they have their RCP average. That's the average of all the polls for this state. And if we look, Sanders is in first place, Biden, Warren, Buttigieg, Klobuchar. Oh, look at that. And then Tulsi Gabbard. She's in sixth place in the state with the first primary. She's ahead of Andrew Yang, ahead of Tom Steyer, ahead of Cory Booker before he dropped out. Michael Bennet is not there. And Deval Patrick doesn't even show up. So you can't really say that she's not competitive. She's doing better in the first primary state than other candidates that the New York Times included. That's puzzling. But why? Why would this most transparent New York Times editorial board, why would they exclude her from this? I read this insert. There's no reason or justification given as to the candidates that they did choose to interview and print in this insert. There's not one mention as to why they excluded Tulsi Gabbard. I find it odd. Tulsi Gabbard is the only woman of color still in the race. Way to be inclusive, New York Times. Good job. And that's where something interesting happens. And this is my question to the good people that support the New York Times. The smart, liberal people that have made the New York Times part of their Sunday, part of their life. What do you do when you find out a piece of information that goes against your identity, that goes against everything that you know. You believe that the New York Times is the best news there is. But I think I've demonstrated that this was not transparent at all. There's no explanation whatsoever as to why there was a candidate that was excluded from this, and other candidates that are polling much lower are included in this. This is something called cognitive dissonance, and it is something that you will have to address today, having watched this video. Now, cognitive dissonance. In the field of psychology, cognitive dissonance occurs when a person holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, or participates in an action that goes against one of these three, and experiences psychological stress because of that. Now, according to this theory, when two actions or ideas are not psychologically consistent with each other, people will do all in their power to change them until they become consistent. And if you're a regular reader of the New York Times, this is cognitive dissonance. You have believed that the New York Times is transparent, that they're fair, that they're unbiased, that they're the best that journalism can be. But in this case, they've excluded a sitting congresswoman, a woman of color, a veteran, someone that is polling higher than other people that they did include, including someone that's not even in the race anymore. And they've given no explanation. But they did tell you on the cover that this is the most transparent thing they've ever done. And they didn't explain it at all. Well, what are you going to do? Now, I suspect that most people, when confronted with this reality, right, they're going to put the blinders back on because they don't want to know the truth. But maybe a way that you can deal with this is you can look at this, you see this guy, this idiot in his jungle studio in Portland, Oregon, and you think, he's some Trump guy, he's some Republican. No. I've been a lifelong Democrat. Yeah. I registered when I was 18 in the Democratic Party. Unlike Elizabeth Warren, who did when she was 47. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, well, you have the choice. You can keep going on believing that this year, that the New York Times, that's the best journalism can ever be. Or perhaps you'll reevaluate that opinion. But I can't make you do that. That's up to you. I hope you have the courage to do that. I will be doing stories about this edition of the New York Times all week. So please subscribe. And if you liked this video, please share it with someone else. That's what I ask. You can hit the like button, you can leave a comment, but the most important thing you can do is you can share it with others. Now, I normally don't ask this. I did spend $6 on this rag. So if you'd like to support me financially, there'll be links in the description. You don't have to. The most important thing is just to share it with someone else. And I really welcome all comments, because I'd like to know what you think about the New York Times excluding Tulsi Gabbard from their issue. Peace.